Alright, welcome back to WMMA Now with your host Chuck Stevenson. Coming at you with a fight review. This one took me a while to get to. It's like a week late, but finally getting to it, and really excited to talk about this because I knew that people would be waiting for this, and really excited to talk about it. So let's get down to it. We're going to Singapore for one championship, Fists of Fury. We're going to the one Atomweight division, aka strawweight. We're talking about the debut of Victoria, the prodigy Lee, well-known sister of one champions Christian and Angela Lee, taking on Sunisa Srisen, coming in at 4-1. And like I said, this was a much anticipated debut ever since they announced Victoria's signing back in the autumn, last fall. And everybody was wondering, how would she actually do in her debut, based really on her older sister and brother's accomplishments. Now, people have talked about, Lee, she was a state wrestling champ. She has pancration champ and, grappling accomplishments and junior amateur accomplishments. But here she was coming in, making her pro debut without an actual adult amateur background because she's only 16 years old. So let's get into the fight here. So first round, Lee came out aggressive early and backed Srisen to the cage. Then there was a clinch, and there were some nice knees by Srisen. And then she threw Lee to the ground with a head and arm throw. Lee started defending immediately because Srisen was inside control. Srisen gave up, went back to guard, standing guard, landed a punch, but then let Lee stand back up. Lee was doing okay standing up at range, but anytime she got into the pocket with Srisen, she started eating punches, and it was pretty equal in the pocket. Lee got a takedown to back take, and the rest of the round was spent with Victoria Lee on Sunisa Srisen's back, with Srisen defending a mix of ground and pound and rear naked choke attempts by Lee. So probably saw Lee ahead after the first round because honestly that was like the entire second half of the round was Lee on Srisen's back. Because you got to remember, one championship has open scoring, like whole fight scoring. They don't score round by round. Second round, Lee again came out aggressive and again backed Srisen up to the cage, and they just started having a little firefight there. They were going blow for blow, punch for punch. Each one threw and landed, and was backed up by their opponent throwing and landing. Srisen threw a lot of looping punches, but they found their mark. Eventually there was a clinch, and Srisen threw some more knees, and then she threw an elbow, and the elbow landed, but it allowed Lee to duck under to do a standing back take. She tripped Srisen to the back from there, and then immediately started fighting for the rear naked choke. Srisen showed like zero defense here whatsoever, so Lee sunk in the rear naked choke. Srisen just straight up flattened out and immediately tapped. So your result was Victoria Lee defeats Sunisa Srisen via rear naked choke, minute and 3 seconds of the round 2. So successful debut for Victoria, the prodigy Lee. And I want to talk a little bit about this fight and some notes that I have. Okay, so first off, the hype going into this fight was beyond ridiculous, even by one championship standards. And one championship, like, hyperbole is the name of the game for one championship. But this was, like, outrageous even by their standards. Like, they were acting like this was the second coming of the Christ almost. Victoria Lee making her debut at 16 years old. It was ridiculous. I mean, beyond ridiculous. The fact that they were like so heavily favoring her, like the only thing they really noticed of Srisen was, oh, she got a takedown in the first, and in the second round, Mitch Chilson was nice enough to acknowledge that her looping punches were finding their home on Lee. I mean, they didn't have anything negative at all to say about Victoria Lee, and I just found that to be like beyond ridiculous because she was making her pro debut, and it was fairly sloppy. But she could have done no wrong in the eyes of the promotion or the commentators. The hype, the hyperbole, just everything was beyond the pale on this one. And honestly, I don't think it was worth it. I didn't see anything special with this fight. Okay? I mean, it was getting so bad that even like Western MMA media was, retweeting the finish and going, only 16 years old. It's like, yeah, but if you pay attention to more than just the UFC, which most Western MMA media really doesn't, you'd know that there are a number of teenagers fighting already. And I've made several videos talking about listing them. So to me, honestly, this was absolutely nothing special. It was just another teenager making their pro debut. Maybe a little unusual in that the teenager won, but not that unusual. So for me, this was nothing special, and I think for them to call her the prodigy is a bit early. And that's not to trash Victoria Lee. This is to trash, really just point out the ridiculous hype from one championship here. Let's see. Oh, big size advantage for Lee. Big size, not just height. She was just overall built bigger than Sunisa Srisen. So she came in here with a nice size advantage, which harkens back to her sister Angela. Angela is very big for the division, and I think once Victoria fills out too, she's going to be big for the division as well. It would not surprise me at all. I'd have to compare the size of the two sisters. I haven't looked it up, but it wouldn't surprise me if Victoria ends up being really big for this division as well. Once she fills out a little bit better. She's skinnier than her sister, but she could easily fill out. Another thing, Lee was just eating shots in the pocket. She, luckily for her, she inherited her sister's chin and head because she can absorb shots because she, unfortunately, inherited her sister's striking defense as well because she has none. And then, okay, there is a weird ending sequence to this fight. And let me explain, because I wasn't really only half paying attention to the fight when I was watching it live because I was at work and trying to do some other things as well. So I didn't really hear anything, the volume was down low, but someone on a forum pointed this out. And I'm going to link the fight in the description and a pinned comment, so go check this out yourself. Okay. Lee takes Srisen down, immediately sinks in a choke, and Srisen doesn't defend at all, doesn't even try to defend. Okay, now this is in the second round. Sinks in a choke, Srisen doesn't even just stands there with her hands on the ground. Okay? Or no, she's not standing, she's crouched on all fours with her hands on the ground, somewhat flattened out, but she starts to get back up, but doesn't do anything with her hands, doesn't try to fight the hands, doesn't try to fight the choke at all. Lee just sinks it in like no problem. Okay? And that can happen sometimes if the choke is that fast. But as soon as she gets it in, Srisen should have started defending it. Then you hear a whistle in the background. And as soon as that whistle hits, Srisen immediately flattens out. So fast. It wasn't even Lee flattening her out. Because usually when you flatten a fighter out, you just keep your hooks in. Srisen flattened out so fast that Lee's hooks flew out, which you just don't see in a rear naked choke. Or you don't see it, you don't see it when a fighter gets flattened out by their opponent because, like I said, the hooks stay in. Srisen immediately just completely flattened out, the hooks flew out, and Srisen immediately tapped out. Now, I want this to be very noted, okay? I am not making any accusations against the Lees, against one championship, against Srisen or her team. Not making any accusations. All I'm saying is, go back, watch this sequence. It's strange. Okay? Again, not trashing the Lees, not trashing Srisen, not trashing one championship. All I'm saying is go back, rewatch the sequence, and watch it a couple times, because I had to after someone pointed this out to me. But go back and rewatch the sequence. It's weird. All right? That's all I can say, is that it's weird that as soon as someone whistled, Srisen flattened out and tapped out immediately. And combined with, absolutely no attempt to defend the choke. Again, I'm not making accusations, I'm just pointing out it's weird. Okay, so for things to work on, for Srisen, obviously she gave up advantages in the first round. She had top position. She didn't have to give it back up. Lee was, trying to shuck her off with that leg, but I thought, she could have stayed in top position. She didn't have to give it up so easily and go back to the feet where she was at a height disadvantage. Maybe she figured because she's a Muay Thai fighter, more of a Muay Thai fighter, that she was doing better when she was doing good on the pocket. But why would you give up an advantageous position to go back to a neutral position? It's nonsensical. And then her shot selection. Specifically, that elbow she threw in the second. She threw that elbow, and it was like a little high, and that allowed Lee to duck under, to take her back, and trip her down flat. So, got to work on that shot selection as well. Now for Lee, and keep in mind, I might come off a little harsh here, but remember, it's only proportional to the amount of hype that was coming into this fight, surrounding her. And this is nothing against her, I'm just pointing out things that need to be worked on. Okay? So it might be harsh, but I think it's fair considering how much hype was coming in surrounding her. Okay, she showed 0 striking defense. And I mentioned this earlier, but she inherited her sister's striking defense, which means she has none, other than take shots to the chin and hope her chin holds up. That is not good for a fighter so young to be doing. Gotta have a guard. Gotta work on head movement. Gotta work on footwork. Gotta work on, striking defense. Otherwise, you're gonna end up having a short career. Like I said, she just relied entirely on her chin, and you hate to see that because eventually she's gonna get the pace to step up in competition. And she might get knocked out because of that. Also, she got taken down by a head and arm throw. For a state wrestling champ to not be able to defend the most common and most easily defended takedown in women's MMA, and you only see it in women's MMA, you don't see dudes at any level above absolute beginner getting taken down by a simple head and arm throw. Okay? You just don't. You only see it in the women's divisions for whatever reason. Okay, it is way too common and way too easily defended for someone being called a prodigy to get taken down that easily by a head and arm throw. I'm sorry. So no striking defense and questionable takedown defense as well. That's really all I have for that. Now, for fights to make, I don't think Srisen, it doesn't really matter because she's way at that lower echelon of the division. Let's talk about who everyone wants to talk about, Victoria Lee. One championship, like I said, I usually give them credit for their matchmaking because they know what they're doing. They know how to build up prospects usually, okay? But here's the problem with this fight against Sunisa Srisen. They gave her a winnable fight against a fighter with, 4 times the experience now? Or 5 times the experience? Yeah, 5 times the experience here. Making pro debut against a fighter with 5 fight experience. Here's the problem. This was a win-win situation for Victoria because if she won, she beat a 5-fight veteran. If she lost, oh well, it's only her pro debut and she fought a 5-fight veteran. But here's the big question, and this is going to be One Championship's real challenge. What do you do with her now? Because you can't, go any lower. You can't just back off. You can't back down after this. You have to continually either give her the exact same type of challenge, or you have to go up. And if you're hyping someone as much as you're hyping her, then you have to go up. So there's no going backwards after this. So who do they match her up with? It's going to be very difficult for them to match her up and give her winnable fights against experienced veterans. Because there were fights when she wasn't exactly winning in this fight, at least neutral or losing. And you put her up against a more experienced fighter, chances are you're going to take she's going to take an L. So, you know, one championship, they gave her and themselves a win-win situation by putting her up against a very winnable fight in Sunisa Srisen, who was also a veteran. So it was a win-win situation. But now there's no going back. They probably should have given her, you know, someone else who like only had one or two fights, or a debutante themselves, but they didn't want to take that risk because they knew that Srisen was a winnable fight for Victoria. So who do they give her now? That's going to be the big question. I have no idea how they're going to match her up. And I'd have to really dig deep into One Championship's fighter roster and go through their terrible website to even pick someone out. I think they're going to have to bring someone in from the outside and really do their homework here. So that's going to be the real challenge. Okay, so those are my thoughts on this fight. A little bit of a long review for a relatively short fight, but I think that this really needed to be broken down essentially, just because this was a really popular fight. A lot of people were looking forward to it, and I know a lot of people were waiting on a review for it, so I thought it was important for me to really break it down. Is Victoria Lee a prodigy? No, I think that was too much hype of a nickname. I mean, earn that nickname. Don't just come in here with it based on, you know, stuff that has nothing to do with, or, okay, let me rephrase that. Is she a prodigy? Not from what I've seen so far. I mean, yes, she has the wrestling credentials. She has, you know, some pancreation and stuff, but now you're a pro in MMA. You didn't even take any real amateur fights. I think there's just too much hype too soon right away. The jury is definitely still out on Victoria Lee. Now, I'm not trying to be down on her. Hey, Victoria, if you happen to watch this, congratulations on a win. I'm happy. I'm happy for you, kid. Good on you. And I wish you the best of luck if you're watching this. But I got to be realistic here, and I got to be honest. This is what my viewers want. And to my viewers, you know, I think you know to expect honesty and some down-to-earth and groundedness from me on that. So anyway, let me know your thoughts on the fight in the comments down below. If you liked the video, please give it a like and share it as well. That helps the channel grow. While you're at it, if you haven't yet, go ahead and subscribe to WMMA Now and hit that bell for notifications. WMMA Now, the most complete women's mixed martial arts dedicated platform on YouTube. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.